Okay, so I'm going to run through today is that I've created a player package from UPK, and it's going to run us through the features that are new in 12.1, the features that are new in 12.1 Enablement Service Pack 1, and 12.1 Enablement Service Pack 2. So it may be that you're on version 11, it may be that you're on a 12.1 standard and you haven't upgraded to ESP1 or ESP2 yet. So it'll give you an idea of the features that you may see at the moment, or the features that all of this may be new to, but we'll work our way through it. So the first thing that we're going to look at in 12.1, there's something that Oracle call conceptual content enhancements. So if I go into that part of the player, the first thing that has been enhanced in 12.1 is web pages themselves. The web page editor before in 11.1 it didn't allow you to do basic things like if you wanted a formatted table in there, if you wanted bullet points, if you wanted to have a style type associated with a web page, you couldn't do that. And sort of standard formatting such as strike-through, superscript, things like that, and find and replace did not work. But all of that has now been implemented in your web page design. Okay, so it just makes it a more functional tool. What they've also enabled is that for the web pages themselves, you can create your own style sheets. So if you're used to cascading style sheets, or even just creating styles in something like Microsoft Word, you can do the same thing now within UPK. So you can create a style for anything that's a heading 1 or heading 2, any tables you're going to use, that type of thing. So if you wanted all of your headings to be, your heading 1s to be Arial font 15 and bold, and all your heading 2s to be Arial 10, you can enable all of that, you can set it all up, and then you can associate your web pages with these style sheets. So if you've got multiple developers and you're all developing content, if somebody wants to create a web page for a concept area to support a topic, if they create a web page and they have a table in there with different headings and text, then everyone will use exactly the same style, so the same look and feel. Okay, so again, that is very good for large teams. Okay, so you can look at that. The next thing is what we call the screenshot overlay. So this is a really good feature. If you think back to previous versions, if for example you had recorded a topic or a number of topics, and for that topic perhaps you wanted to change the logo, perhaps your corporate logo had slightly changed, in previous versions you would have to go into each topic and each screen and either re-record that screen so it's got the new logo on it, or go into MS Paint or your Paint tool, and for each topic, each frame in that topic, you'd have to paint out that logo. But what you can do now with the screenshot overlay feature, it'll actually pulls out, if you remember that the screenshots within UPK are all bitmap images, so it pulls all those screenshots out into PowerPoint, and when it's in PowerPoint, you can then edit the entire topic in one go. So I'll just go into try it mode for this, and I'll just show you what I mean by that. Okay. So we have our topic open, our topic editor, and within here we now have a new button to open the topic up within PowerPoint. Okay. Once it's within PowerPoint, you get a few do's and don'ts. So it basically says you can go in here and do things such as you can put shapes over certain areas of your screenshots. You can put logos in there, etc. But things that you shouldn't do in terms of you wanted to reorder this, you wouldn't reorder things in here, you wouldn't change the bubble text. All of that type of stuff should still be done in the editor. This is just looking at the image itself and making sort of changes to that image. So what we're going to do here, if I select my slide, we are then going to use the basic PowerPoint functionality in here, just insert an image. Okay, so I've inserted a Larmer brown logo there, it's just gone in for me. I'll position it where I want it to go, positioned up here, and I can now use within PowerPoint, there is an overlay editor. See up here there's a new tab, an overlay editor tab. If I go into that, it then gives me a few options that I can work with. So I can, for the selected object, so I've selected the Larmer Brown logo, I can copy it to the previous frame, to the next one, to all frames, or I can delete it from all frames. So if I say I want to copy that to all frames, okay, this is now, that logo there is now on every single frame within this topic. So previously you would have had to done that manually, frame by frame, but now this is copied it all over. Likewise, if we wanted to mask something, so in this example here, it's going to, we've got, this is an Excel spreadsheet, and it's got people's performance bonuses and their names. So if we wanted to mask that out, again, in previous versions of UPK, you could have done it frame by frame, but we can just create something like a rectangle that's filled in and place it on top of here, so we can easily mask that out. Another way you might use this, say example, you'd gone into your application and it had real people's names in there, or you didn't want to show who was logged into the application when you were recording the topic, you could mask out on one frame and then say I also want to mask in every other frame for that topic. Okay, so in this example here, we're going to just insert a shape, so we've masked the sales reps' names, and again I can use my overlay editor, copy it to all frames, and that is now going to be for every single frame. This is now going to be masked, that data is going to be masked. Okay. When we want to save it back into UPK, we just hit the save button, close it down, and that is now, those changes are now pulled back into UPK and into that topic. And for example, that logo is going to be in every single frame, and that information is going to be masked on every single frame. Okay. So it's not something you could have done this before, but you would have had to do it manually by hand for each frame. But now the screenshot overlay allows you to pull the whole topic out into PowerPoint and then make sort of mass changes to that topic and then pull it all back into UPK again. It just saves you a lot. Okay, so that's sort of conceptual changes. They've also made changes for managing complex content. So that's the actual library itself, finding topics within that library, previewing content within the library. They've made that a little bit easier as well. The first thing you can do, you can actually search by context ID in 12.1. So what I mean by context ID, for the help menu integration, if you integrate it into something like Oracle eBusiness Suite, every time you capture a frame, it knows the context ID of that frame in the target application, and it stamps it onto the frame within the topic within UPK. If, for example, you had the target application was upgraded and you knew a certain screen needed to be changed within UPK, previously you would have to search through your topics, find that screen and then make the change to it. What you can do now is that you can just search for, because in the target application you can find out what the context ID is. You can speak to your developers of the target application to find out what the context ID is of the frame that has been updated or the screen that has been updated. You can then search within UPK for just topics that have that context ID. So it very quickly allows you to look through all of your content and then understand which frames need to be updated if you've updated your target application. Okay, so again, it saves you a lot of time. You don't have to just search through manually. You can just run that context ID search. Okay. Other things that save you time, there's now a derived documents pane. So a derived document would be if you use the paste special and duplicate option. An example of this would be if you wanted to, if you created your content in English and then you wanted to translate that into other languages, you would have your master content in English or in your primary language, and then you would duplicate that content and then translate it into other languages. If there was a change to that primary language or to the English content, you would then have to search through your other topics that had been translated and then find which frames had to be updated and or which topics had to be updated, then make those updates. It sounds like that would be easy, but if you don't speak or read those other languages, that can be quite difficult to do, because as part of that translation process, even the topic names are changed. Okay, so I've hit this in a live project. I don't speak German at all, and there were topics that had been translated into German, and there were certain frames in these topics that had to be updated, and even just finding the topics was a bit of a challenge. Now we have this derived documents pane, is that you have a parent, master parent topic or document, and then when you make a duplicate of that, there is a link to all the children of that master one. So in the example I talked about there, you would have your English master. I know I want to make a change to everything that's been duplicated from this master, and it would just show me where all those topics are. Okay, so again, it saves you a lot of time. And if you are duplicating a lot of content, it keeps a link between the duplicated content and the original content that was duplicated from. So again, that's a key feature. The Find in Library option has been updated. Previously, to find something in your library, you could go to your outline. You could right-click on a module, section, or topic in your outline, and there was a Find in Library functionality that would then take you to the place in your document library where that object sits. It's just been updated now, so you can also do it from the Related Documents pane. So if you look at the Related Documents pane for your outline, you see that there is something related to the topic you've selected. If you want to find where that related document sits within your library, you can get straight to it. And again, from the Derived Documents pane. If you open up the Derived Documents pane from your outline and you want to know where a derived document sits within your actual library, again, there's a Find in Library option in there. Okay, so just, again, making your life easier as a developer. This is a good one, preview from the library. Previous versions, if you wanted to preview a topic, you had to have that topic sitting within an outline, so you had to have it associated with a section or a module. You can now preview topics straight from the library itself. So you can see here, we've got this topic selected, and you get that preview option in the library view, not just the outline view. So again, this can save you time if you're developing content and you don't want yet to put it into an outline because it's not ready to be published, then you can just preview it straight from the library itself. Okay, so again, that saves you time. For the mobile workforce, they've enhanced iPad. iPad functionality was there for 11.1, but it's been enhanced for 12.1, so it's more compatible. And also, there is an actual iPad launch file within the player package now. So if you're uploading the player package to an LMS, learning management system, such as the Knowledge Center, then if you launch it from an iPad, UPK will understand that that is the device that's been used, and it will launch a specific GUI for the iPad, so it's even more compatible with the iPad. Okay. See-it mode has also been completely redesigned, so to make it not only for mobile devices, it's also much nicer for the desktop, but particularly for mobile devices, it's a much simpler interface. So if I just run a topic on the newly designed See-it mode, you can see at the bottom now that it's just a very simplified player. So we've got a previous, we've got play pause at the bottom here, next, and restart playback, and we've also got a timeline along the bottom. So it's a much simplified interface. Before See-it mode, you had to kind of understand how UPK worked, or the player worked, to be able to run through it, but now it's a very simple interface. Also, with the very latest enhancement, if I hit the backspace key, I can go back a step, and that works for See-it and Try-it mode. So again, that's a nice feature, allows me to easily navigate forward and back using the keyboard. For content development itself, I'll just close a few of these down. There's been quite a few enhancements for the development of content for us as designers. The first thing that's been implemented in 12.1 is that how we change the published output, the look and feel of the published output. They've tried to simplify that. So in previous versions, you had to go into the system folder and update the publishing style. They've now introduced an object called a player skin. So there's a skin document type or a object that you can create, and that allows you to decide what you want the bubbles to look like, the background fonts to look like, things like that. So for the same content, when you come to publish it out, you can just choose which skin you want to use to go on top of your user interface. And we can see here, out of the box, there's a new grey skin that comes with it. So the bubbles are now sort of in a grey look and feel rather than the yellow at the top. So if you wanted to have the same content, but you wanted to have different styles for different parts of your company, for example, you could have different player skins for that. Okay, and they've simplified how you do that. The publishing wizard, for those of you who published content in previous versions, when you came to the end, you could either choose to look at the location where the content was published, preview, or look at the activity log. And once you chose one of them, that was it. This window closed, and you can go back and look at what the other ones. They've now changed this so it's actual links, so you can look at all of them and go back. So it was quite annoying that you couldn't do that, but now it's there. So for those of you who are published, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Shared links have been updated, so this is a key feature. Previous versions, when you could share a link to content, so when we share a link, we get a direct URL, but that would be a link straight to that individual topic. So the enhancements to this are, you can now tick to view in the outline, so it will show the topic that you're linking to, but it also show any sections or modules that that topic is associated with, so it gives the user that you're sending that link to an idea of where that topic sits within the outline. But I think probably more importantly, you can now actually put a link to a topic and it opens the topic up at that exact frame. So if, for example, you had somebody working on a help desk and an end user wanted to know a very specific part of a process, rather than just sending them a link to the topic and saying, look at this, you can send them a link to perhaps step number 10 within that topic and say, this is the screen you need to look at because this is what you're having problems with. So you can be very specific on when you redirect users to content, on when they open that content, what they see at the start. So I'd say that's certainly a key upgrade. Default modes. In previous versions, the default modes, the player, you got see it, try it, know it, do it and print it. If you published for an LMS, you could see it, try it and know it, do it and print it or not enabled. You can now decide as a development team what you want to be in there. So if you want it that every time a topic is created, do it mode and print it mode are going to be there when it's published, you can set that as a default mode in the topic options. Okay, so again, just saves you time. You don't have to do it manually once you've created the topic. Sound format has been simplified. Previous versions you could choose the sound quality, but Oracle realised that anything other than high quality was terrible, was not a good user experience. So now it's all audio is at the highest quality and everything is in AAC format. Okay, so just simplify that option. So when you come to choose sound, it's either no sound, keyboard and mouse clicks only, or all available sounds. So if you had narration in there, you would choose all available sound and you would have your narration, and it's automatically going to be in the highest possible quality settings. Default applicable view, this is when we launch it from the help menu. So when you launch, if somebody's in an application and they want in-application support, if they launch UPK directly from the application's help menu, then it will pull up topics that are appropriate for the page that they are on. And you can choose how that topic list is going to be structured. So the applicable list just shows the topics themselves, so it's only the topics. The applicable outline will show the topics, but it will also show the modules and sections that that topic is associated with, so it gives them a bit more of an idea of where they are within the outline structure. And there's also the option you can choose all, so it's just going to show them all the content. It won't be specific to the page they're on. So if you want everyone just, when they click on help, they see all of UPK, then you can configure that as well. Okay. Target applications, as we would expect, the target applications have been enhanced. Main things to consider here, 8.1, Windows 8.1 is now supported in terms of browsers. Internet Explorer 11 is supported. Something that is not supported in here is that if you're developing content, you have to be Internet Explorer 9 onwards. So IE 8 is not supported for 12.1 if you're developing content, but it is supported if you're an end user looking at content. And as usual, the target applications, the same sort of host of target applications, and it just continues to support the latest versions of those. Okay. And if you need more information on that, you can go to the Oracle site and that will give you information, the very latest information on what's supported. Things to save you time as a developer, you can now delete multiple frames. You couldn't do that before. It's quite annoying. You had to delete frame by frame in your developer, but now you can select multiple frames in your frame structure and you can delete them all at the same time. Print area, this is a nice, certainly a powerful, it's more than nice, it's a powerful feature for your printed output. You will now, in your printed output previously, you could have your screenshots and then you could have your step-by-step guide that goes along with those screenshots, but now in the actual step guides themselves, you can have a printed area. So you can see here that within step 1, we're going to begin the calculation, click the E4 cell, and we've actually got a mini screenshot within the actual step as well. And the way we do that is there's an additional box. So the action area, as you know, is a red rectangle or square. We've now got a pink or purple, depending how you look at it, additional area in there, which is your print area. So you can put that also onto a frame and decide what somebody's going to see within the step itself. So you can see they've got this. It gives them an idea of what they're looking at on the screen. Finally, jumping points. This is massive, I think. If you've ever tried to use jumping points before, in previous versions you could not jump to an explanation frame. So you'd have to jump to an action frame itself. But if you're going to use jumping points, the way you use a jumping points would be you might have a long topic. So say, for example, it was expenses, and you were going to have the full end-to-end process of expenses. How you fill out an expense claim, how you submit an expense claim, how your manager then reviews the expense claim. If they pass it back to you, then how you update the expense claim and resubmit it. If you had all of that in a single topic, you could use jump points, jumping points to allow a user just to jump. If a manager came in and all they wanted to know is how to approve it, they could jump just to that point of the topic on how to approve the content. But in previous versions, you would have to jump to an action frame. In this version, you can jump to an explanation frame. So you can divide your topic up using static explanations about now you're about to submit your claim, you're now a manager, you're now going to review the claim, and you can allow people to jump straight into those explanation frames. Okay, you couldn't do that before. So if we use jumping points, then this is a very good enhancement. Okay, so that is what was when 12.1 went live. Those were the enhancements for 12.1. There have been also enhancements for the Enablement Service Pack 1. Okay, so I'll just run through them as well. So we just talked about the printed areas. They've now enhanced that option, and it also shows the action area. Okay, so now if you look at this screenshot on the right hand side, we've got the print area that we've selected, but it actually shows within that print area, it shows the print area, it also shows the action area. So this is what the user should click on within that. So that's a good enhancement, so they know exactly within this screenshot what they should be clicking on, and this is the printed output. Another enhancement, you can now, when you have published your player package, you can choose topics and you can convert them to MP4 video files. So if you wanted to give your end users, for example, an end-to-end view of a process, and you didn't want to involve UPK at all, you thought that you just didn't want to involve it, you could output a topic as an MP4 file. It will just play through as a movie. You could put that onto a web server, and then you could direct people to it and they could look at it. You could put it onto SharePoint and they could look at it, and they have no idea that it's been created from UPK, and it doesn't add any extra complexity at all. All they do is play that movie file and they'll see that end-to-end process. Okay, it's not SCORM compliant anymore, so if you wanted to track whether or not they had viewed that video, you would want to use UPK functionality. It just pushes it out as an MP4 file, as any sort of movie file, and then it would play. In previous versions, you could create questions and assessments and associate those questions and assessments with content, and you could use them just as inline questions, or you could use them as pre and post assessments within the Knowledge Centre. You can now have a bank of questions, so you could have 20 questions in an assessment, and you could say whenever we use this assessment, randomly choose 5 questions from it, so they're not always, users are not always looking at the same group of questions. So again, that's a good enhancement. The LMS, Learning Management System Required mode. Previously, if you had uploaded content to an LMS, Knowledge Centre particularly, and an end user was working through that content, the most complex mode, it would be the one that was ticked as required. So try it mode is more complex than see it mode, note mode is more complex than try it mode. So if you had note mode enabled for a topic, unless they completed note mode, it would not be reported that they had completed that learning object. Now you can change that. You could say that note mode is there for their own benefit, but as long as they've looked at try it mode, the LMS will record it that they've completed that topic. So it just gives you a lot more flexibility on tracking, reporting, and deciding if you want all users to go through no mode or just some users to go through try it mode. And this is at a topic by topic basis. So there could be some topics that you definitely want people to look at no mode to be deemed to have completed it, and there may be others you can just say just see it, and that's fine. So it's quite flexible, but again that's quite a powerful new feature. For those of you who have used the test it modes who are interested in using it for UAT testing, but also just for, you can use it to test existing UPK content. When you import the tested, a player package with tested mode enabled into the Knowledge Center, that is now tracked. So you can, previous versions, they could run through the tested mode, but it wasn't tracked if they completed the tested mode. It wasn't tracked what had passed, what had failed, at what point had a certain topic failed the software testing process. But this is now all tracked within the Knowledge Center, so you can use the Knowledge Center to perform UAT testing, for example. Use that as your testing tool if you wanted to. And again, there's an updated, they've updated their target applications. And again, I would direct you for the most recent one, go to Oracle and have a look at the UPK overview, and it will show you the very recent list of target applications. And finally, on to ESP2, that's just been released. There are some key upgrades to this one. One of the key ones is the Record It client. Previous versions, you may or may not have used the Record It client. The Record It client was aimed at users who were not trained to use the full UPK developer client, but we still wanted them to record a process. So it could be a subject matter expert that we wanted them to do some raw records of a process, and then the instructional designers who use the full UPK developer client would then take that raw record and then they would update it, enhance it, and push it out to end users. It may have been for UAT testers who wanted to use it to record scripts. So again, they didn't know how to use the full client, but they would use the Record It client to do basic updates. This model has now been re-engineered. The two main differences are it's now its own individual application. So if I just launch it from, this is it running live on my screen. So it's now an individual application. It doesn't link into your multi-user library. They don't have to have a profile set up on that library. The installation of it itself, they can download the executable to install it from the UPK library itself. So again, they don't need the full installation media pack to install this. And to record content, it is a very simple process. I record a new topic. It just goes into automatic record it mode, and then it just starts recording. So if I just start recording my screen, and anything I now do will be recorded. Just clicking through here. If I now stop my recording, it now goes back to the record application itself. The author here can now go through and add in some notes on each of these pages, and once they've done that, they can then save it as its own file type, and then this file is then uploaded into the UPK by one of the full instructional designers from the fully fledged UPK client, and then it goes into the library. So that at this point here, they can't go in and there's no point can they go in and access content they shouldn't access. There's no risk of them updating topics that they shouldn't access, and it's a much simplified interface. So even the previous Record It client was, you still had to understand how to edit a topic, how the topic editor worked, but here it's much simpler. So it's a better tool for someone who does not have any bandwidth to learn a new application, but you want them to use UPK to record some screens for you. They can just use this Record It client. Also, there is no developer license attached to this. Previous versions, if somebody used the developer client, they had to have a full developer license. All they need for this one is an end user license. So any end user of UPK can now just have Record It client on their desktop, and then they can run it and record content and then push that content to one of the UPK instructional designers. Okay, so it's a very big enhancement, and hopefully it will make Record It client a lot easier to use and much more used. Other things that have been added, the author profile themselves. So previous versions, if you went to add an author in there, the profile just had their name and the password, but now you can have their full name in there, initials, email, their contact details. This is, again, a key enhancement. If you use Windows authentication, then the username for your author would just be their Windows login ID, which may or may not be easily used to identify them. But now if you put their details in here, if you want to see who has developed content, so you can see at the right-hand side, you can just hover over whoever's developed content, their username, and it now gives you these details. Okay, so it's Again, this is key if you've got a multi-user environment, you've got someone who's perhaps created content a couple of years ago and you want to talk to them about it. It's very easy to find out who they are. Are they still with the company? Are they not? What are the contact details? So it just makes it easier to manage a team. Document owner and state version control. Previous versions, the document state and the owner, you would, if I go into here, I'm now in the developer, into our properties. So at the right hand side here, I just close this down, each object has an owner and a state value. When you check content in and out, as you would do in previous versions, this owner and state value is not actually linked to that latest version of that topic, module or section. Okay. Basically, if you've ever used this before, you do not have to check something out to be able to update these. So that shows it's not linked to the version of the documents. But they've updated this so it is now linked to the version of these documents. So if I go in here and view the document history, we can see within here we have the owner and we have the state that is linked to each version of this document in our document history. So this is very powerful. It means no longer can someone accidentally go in and change the state of a topic. So you may have all your topics that are all ready for publish, and someone might accidentally go and change a state value, or they might do the reverse. They might accidentally change the value of a topic that's only raw and it's not signed off to fully signed off. And then when you come to publish this, you would publish a topic that's signed off. So it means you can no longer do that because you have to check it out. So you're in far more control. It has to be much more of a desired action to change that state. And also it's part of this version control now. You can see who made that change, who made the state change, and all that kind of stuff. So it's much better if you've got a complicated library. Improve navigation, see it and try it. As I demonstrated before, you can now use the backspace key to move to the previous frame and see it and try it modes. Previously, in try it, if you wanted to go to a frame before the current frame, you would have to go into the actions menu and select previous frame. You can now just use the keyboard. Much better for end users, much better end user experience. Deployment for mobile devices, as well as iPads, in 11.1 and enhancements for iPads in 12.1. 12.1 ESP2 now supports Android tablets running Google Chrome and Windows tablets running in a modern browser. So that is a good enhancement if you want to start pushing out to mobile users who are using Android and Windows tablets. And desktop itself, Internet Explorer 8 through to 11 were supported in the previous UPK version. But the Do It mode feature, so if you're in UPK and you want hands-on support, you would click on the Do It mode and you would get a browser, a little dialog window that sits on top of your actual target application. And IE11, that didn't work correctly because of the way Microsoft had changed IE11. That Do It mode window would sit behind the target application, which made it pretty useless. It had to sit on top of the target application so you could see what you're doing. That has been corrected in ESP2. So Do It mode is now fully functional again in IE11. Okay, so if you use an application support and HEMI and you use IE11, then this is a key upgrade feature. So it allows you to properly use Do It mode. Okay, and that's quite sort of fast and furious. There's quite a few things to get through, but it was important that we looked at all of those. So hopefully, even if you're on 12.1 already, you've seen some features you perhaps didn't know that was there. And also, if you're not on ESP1 yet or ESP2 yet, then again you'll know that when you upgrade to those service packs, what additional features you will get.